In a quiet village, where narrow alleys connect peaceful homes, no one sensed the growing darkness within one household. On that fateful morning, Hye-eun left for work at a restaurant at 9 a.m. After a long day, she returned home late at night, feeling uneasy as she saw the house shrouded in darkness. Phone ringing. Emergency services, how can I help you? Inside, she was met with a brutal reality: her only son, lifeless in the attic, his body in a horrific state. What happened to 16-year-old Kim Kyung-yeon? A journalist reports. Police confirmed evidence of homicide and have identified two male suspects in their 40s. The killers, now exposed to the public, were Baek Kwang-sok, 48, and Kim Si-nam, 46. At 3:16 p.m., they climbed the low walls of the house, avoiding prying eyes. They made their way to the roof and broke in through the attic window. When Kyung-yeon was found, his hands and feet were bound with tape. He had been strangled. The most fatal injury was a ligature mark around his neck, left by a 3.5 centimeters wide belt, the direct cause of death. The murderer was his stepfather. Baek Kwang-sok had lived with Kyung-yeon and his mother, Hye-eun, until 2 months before the murder. His other name? Father. Hye-eun still cannot believe her only son was taken from her. Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect you, I'm a man, after all. Kyung-yeon always reassured his mother. A warm-hearted and thoughtful boy, he was the reason for her existence. But what could have driven Baek Kwang-sok to destroy their lives so cruelly? The killers remained silent. A premeditated attack. Back in July, after Baek moved out, Hye-eun and Kyung-yeon lived alone. Due to the summer heat and the ongoing pandemic, Kyung-yeon rarely left the house. An opportunity the murderers took advantage of. Their entry point? The only open window in the house, the attic window. Security footage captured two intruders breaking in. On that day, Kyung-yeon had eaten lunch and likely felt drowsy. He had gone upstairs to rest when Baek Kwang-sok and Kim Si-nam ambushed him. He was likely subdued and murdered while still half asleep. The autopsy confirmed that he was killed shortly after his final phone call with his mother. The victim's stomach was still full at the time of death, meaning he was murdered soon after eating. Something unusual stood out. We look for defensive wounds marks indicating a struggle. But in this case, the wounds were very weak. Kyung-yeon, a physically strong boy, had almost no defensive injuries or binding marks. It is possible he was already unconscious when he was restrained, meaning he had been completely overpowered before being tied up. His head had suffered at least 10 powerful blows, causing significant internal bleeding. The sequence of events: he was severely beaten in the face and head. He lost consciousness. His hands and feet were tied up. He was strangled with a belt. His mouth and nose were taped shut. This was a deliberate, calculated act of violence. A murder fueled by obsession. Why did Baek Kwang-sok commit this heinous crime? If Hye-eun could turn back time, she would go back 5 years to when she first reconnected with Baek. They met at the restaurant where she worked. Old school classmates, they gradually grew close. Both had experienced divorces and were raising sons. Seeing Baek treat her family well, she let her guard down. 3 years ago, they moved in together. On the surface, everything seemed ordinary except for one thing: Baek's obsession. As time passed, his love became suffocating. Arguments grew frequent, and soon, violence entered the relationship. He smashed a cup over my head. The glass shattered, and even he injured his hand. Whenever they fought, Kyung-yeon openly defied Baek. In return, Baek started beating him too. He hit Kyung-yeon with a picture frame so hard that he needed 5 stitches. Despite this, Hye-eun found it difficult to leave him because he constantly threatened her. I'll kill Kyung-yeon, and then I'll kill you too. The final moments. Baek was captured a day after fleeing. He claimed the murder was not premeditated, but evidence suggested otherwise. At 7:40 a.m. on the day of the crime, Kim Si-nam was seen buying duct tape at a hardware store. From that morning, the two men circled the house for 7 hours, waiting for an opportunity. At 3:16 p.m., when the attic window opened, they climbed the walls, entered, and murdered Kyung-yeon. Just 30 minutes after the crime, Kim Si-nam fled the scene. His first stop? An ATM where he withdrew money Baek had transferred to him as payment for the crime. Baek's obsession had turned into murderous madness. The arrest and trial. Police caught the suspects within 24 hours. Police announcement. The suspects were arrested at a motel near Jeju City. When confronted with evidence, Kim Si-nam confessed first. Baek Kwang-sok planned everything. He told me to follow his orders. But Baek Kwang-sok remained silent, denying intent to kill. However, the evidence was overwhelming: bloodstains on his clothes, CCTV footage, and the ATM transaction. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Baek had orchestrated the murder out of revenge and control. This was not a crime of passion. This was premeditated murder. The jury was horrified. The judge's ruling was severe. Baek Kwang-sok life in prison for murder and premeditated intent. Kim Si-nam 25 years in prison for aiding and abetting. Many believed life imprisonment was too lenient. In court, Hye-eun broke down. He took my son. He should never walk free again. A mother's grief. Even after sentencing, the pain did not end for Hye-eun. Every corner of the house reminded her of her son. She often replayed their last conversation. If I had known that was the last time I'd hear his voice, I would have never left the house. The case sparked national outrage. Calls for stricter laws against domestic violence and repeat offenders grew louder. In response, the government reviewed protection measures for abuse victims, promising stronger intervention. But for Hye-eun, no legal change could bring back her son. She now lives alone, carrying the weight of an unbearable loss. If you are in danger, don't wait. Get out while you still can. I thought I had time. I was wrong. As the case fades from headlines, the grief of a mother remains. Kyung-yeon's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked violence and obsession. But in the midst of sorrow, Hye-eun clings to one thing: memories of her son. Forever 16, forever kind, forever brave.